Welcome to Gyantalk. Mountainous regions constitute 22% of the total landmass in the world, and there are around 915 million people living in the mountainous region. And mountainous region actually has a lot of specificities. It has its own issues. Developing mountainous regions is therefore a big challenge. But thankfully now there are scientists, there are professionals who have been working on mountain development, environment conservation and so on. But हाम्रो एउटा सबैभन्दा ठुलो गर्वको कुरा के छ भन्दाखेरि चाहिँ one of the champions of mountain development is right from our hills, right from our state Sikkim. The one that we have invited tonight is actually one of the ones from our hills, from this particular part of the country, who has now become one of the most prominent ecologists, globally acclaimed ecologists. And so we will be talking to him. Before I say anything about him, I think I should introduce him right away to you. So please join me in welcoming my guest tonight, and is none other than Dr. Eklabya Sharma, who is right now the Deputy Director General in International Center for Integrated Mountain Development, based in Kathmandu, which is an international organization of the eight countries. Let's put it this way: the intergovernmental organizations representing 8 countries. And right now he is here on his official tour. Because he's recently been appointed as the Environment and Mountain Development Advisor to the government of Sikkim. So thank you so much for coming.
It's my pleasure to be here.
Yes, sir. You started your career from Sikkim, from Jiwan. Can you quickly tell us when did you come here, and how did you establish Jiwan Institute here and so on?
So it was 1989 when Government of India decided to have a regional center of Jiwan Institute of National Nature.
Right. Which year was that?
That was 1989.
Okay.
So I came here, I remember the date, 5th of July.
Wow.
In Gyantalk, and then the journey started with a very minimum, I would say, facilities, modern facilities, but with very good visioning, with a good mission to see how a new institution was which was being built at that time.
How old were you?
I was at that time quite young. I think it was 31 years old, I think.
Isn't it around the same time you were also the awardee of the youngest scientist?
Yes,
youngest
yes,
scientist award.
Yes, yes,
yes. That was the same year? Or?
Yeah, I was awarded in 1988, and that was quite a very important milestone in my life. So that gave me a lot of recognition of my work, which
right.
was on, again, the Himalayan region, looking into the very important aspect of forest ecology, which gives a very good sustainable development. So in that context, the work which I did in Banaras Hindu University, that was my university, and postdoc, so that was the basis. And when I came here, I think there was a foundation, and Sikkim was a very good laboratory for me to take things forward. And things in Sikkim at that time was just emerging. So new ideas, new thinking were coming at that time. So I was very pleased.
But also you must have faced a lot of challenges, because Sikkim's local scientific community was, perhaps even if it was there, it was in a very incipient stage.
Yes, yes, it was. I would say that many national institutions were existing here,
right.
Like Botanical Survey of India, ICR.
Yeah. But the local participation.
But the local participation was quite weak. So for that, we worked very much with. There used to be a secretary in agriculture, Dr. Basnet from Sikkim. He did his PhD from US. He was secretary. So we had Sikkim Science Society. So there we tried to cultivate scientific innovations and scientific related work. We tried to get in a way that that could be mobilized at the state level. And then later on, when the Department of Science and Technology was formed, so we were very much instrumental. We were publishing a journal, Sikkim journal at that time for that society. So that was a time when I think everything was just starting, as I said.
But
And
looking back, after so many years, when you look back and look at Sikkim in particular, are you satisfied? Are you happy with the way Sikkim has progressed in the field of scientific research and investigation and so on?
I think when I come back and see Sikkim, I see it's a huge transformation that has taken place in last 17 years. I left 2001. So in 17 years, I see here, I was also in the board of governors of Sikkim Manipal University when they were establishing that, and especially the engineering college as well as medical college. So that was the only university which was coming. So there was no higher education except for Sikkim, that's Gyantalk College, which was under North Bengal University. But really higher education was not really coming from the state. So now you see there are 5-6 universities here in Gyantalk. So that itself talks about the.
So you as a hardcore scientist derive a sense of satisfaction looking at these developments?
I think what is more important is that there are good developments they have taken. I think the youth, they are getting good education, and there are some good researches also happening. Of late, I see here in Sikkim, there was a big conference on cryosphere. So cryosphere is a frozen water, that is all your glaciers and permafrost.
So when was this term coined?
Just this cryosphere is long term. It's I think it's cryogenic. We say preservation, or we say that means
we've
something
heard about
frozen.
Mesosphere, ionosphere,
But cryosphere is very high. But of course, popularly known in last 10-15 years because of climate change. So this cryosphere conference was organized here. I sent 2 or 3 people from ICIMOD. So I felt that okay, Sikkim is advancing in science. So I was very much happy. Then now I see Sikkim is organizing many such conferences. So that gives a platform and networking possibilities for the local scientists, local people who work here. So I see Sikkim has opened up and providing networking platform for many professionals who are based here, and I'm also very glad that there are many institutions who are contributing professionally here. You can see you have ATRI, Asoka Trust Institute, you have WWF, you have GB Pant Institute, ECOS, all these, then you have TMI, India, then Kanchenjunga Conservation Committee in Yorkshire. All these are very dedicated institutions with good professional.
Yeah, and one of the best things about these organizations is their connection with the grassroots. Almost every Sikkimese knows what ECOS is, what TMI is, what Kanchenjunga
Conservation
Committee is doing, because they're so connected with the people. Anyway, we will come back to Sikkim, but now I would like to trace your journey, professional journey. So you left Sikkim to join ICIMOD.
Yes, 2001, but later on we'll talk about Sikkim, what I was able to contribute here. And then I joined in ICIMOD.
That was
2001, September.
Why did you leave in the first place?
I think I have to tell you my work here in Sikkim, which I started in 1989. Before that, my field site for PhD and postdoc was Kalimpong. So I was working in this same context for quite time. And then I was feeling at a point, so I had done work on integrated watershed management first time in Mamle watershed in South Sikkim next to Namchi. where the first integrated watershed management for Himalayan region was published in 1992.
Okay.
So, and after that, a series of papers in top journals. If you Google now, or if you see, so you will see so many top journals coming from that watershed. Very fundamental work that we were doing. Then we did Sikkim biodiversity and ecotourism work in Yoksam and Khichipiri and Jongri trekking corridors, and there also we had a very strong science group with a lot of policy, working with the government to make policy decisions in the state level, but also working with the communities very much. At that time, the Mountain Institute US was involved with ICIMOD, so they brought a lot of community skills here, right in Sikkim. And that legacy which we had established at that time continues, and that is continued by Kanchenjunga Conservation Committee, which was established by our work. So that is another vision. Then our work on agroforestry, medicinal and aromatic plants, and work related to disaster.
So there was nothing left to be done.
Yeah.
In a sense.
So in a sense, that I was working for the community, the government policy, government of India here. So I thought that now that time was really I have to take this Sikkim experience and share with the global community. And the best forum for that to remain in the mountains was ICIMOD, the International Center for Integrated Mountain Development. And I think it has provided me a very good platform, and Sikkim is a good state in many sense, and I was able to take that message outside.
And once you went there, you never looked back. You just rose higher and higher and higher. Now here you are as the director, deputy director general. You've got only one step to climb to become the director general. What has been the best experience working in ICIMOD for you? I mean, there are many, but if you have to choose one.
I think one thing which I would, where I put a lot of effort and which is a reality is, for the first time, ICIMOD has been established 35 years ago in 1983 by 8 countries with Act of Parliament, and it's an intergovernmental organization.
It's a miniature of UN.
Yeah, exactly. Like SARC is political, but ICIMOD is 8 countries, which is SARC plus 2 minus 2, I say. Plus 2 is China and Myanmar, minus 2 is Sri Lanka and Maldives. So Afghanistan, Pakistan, China, India, Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh and Myanmar are part of this region. And for more than 30 years, there was no one comprehensive assessment which was done for the Hindu Kush Himalayan region. It's a huge region, 4.3 million square kilometer area, and 240 million people live in the mountains. And there are 10 major rivers which originate here, major ones like Indus, Ganga, Brahmaputra, Yangtze, Yellow River, Irrawaddy. All these rivers, 10 rivers are originating here, and 1.9 billion people live in the downstreams. So the ecosystem services which is providing by this Hindu Kush Himalayan region was not realized so much by the non-convinced, I said, the people who do not know much about mountains. So the big message is that how we can make that message was the intention. For that we have done this assessment involving 350 scientists and think tanks over 3 years, more than 3 years, 3.5 years, and this assessment has come. And some of the key findings, if you see, I can mention if you like, here are really worrisome for not only the Hindu Kush Himalayan region, but for the people living outside, and I think people at large globally, because it provides global goods and services. So, I mean, if you want to hear about those findings, I can mention a few of them.
I was just going through your interview that you gave for Sikkim Journal. You've talked about our specificities, and you've talked about marginality, fragility, vulnerability, in accessibility. Can you explain this for laymen? What do you mean by that?
So what happens, I mean, marginality means people who live in the mountains are in a very, very marginal situation. A farmer of Sikkim cannot be compared with a farmer of Punjab. that is a marginality, because we don't have all those luxury of being a elite farmer.
Right.
Things are changing now
Right,
because
that's
of
true.
organic farming. That's a different. So marginality is that mountains have always remained in margins of
Right,
development,
right.
of economic development. So that is still persisting at large. Then vulnerability, since the Himalayas, the youngest mountain systems in the world, it's still rising. So we have landslides, we get avalanches, we have all these vulnerabilities. So what you start, livelihoods, people are always facing natural calamities or other types of disasters and like that. So there is a huge vulnerability. So that is another thing where we have to cope.
There's a lack of stability in terms of income and so on.
We are at risk in
Right.
much of the sense.
Right.
So for that you can say that the connectivity between Siliguri and Gyantalk, when I used to live here, and sometimes Likhuvir or something,
Right,
landslide,
yeah.
for several days there were no supplies in Gyantalk. So that's a vulnerable situation for mountains. Then fragility. So anything that you do in mountains, you take mountain products like that. We don't have really infrastructure. It is developing now. So all our initiatives, all our products are facing a very fragile situation. Not only ecosystems are fragile, but even our products are fragile. So whatever people do, so they have to live with that fragility very much, and harsh environmental. You can go to Yumthang or all those places, Lachen. People live in such a harsh, fragile situation. So that is very different situation. So by saying that all these are there, but accessibility, inaccessibility, I said, things are changing because of mobile. But just you can think how many days we take to travel from Gyantalk to all different places. Even they are very inaccessible. At least Sikkim is much better connected, but you go to Nepal, sometimes you have to walk 7 days to reach your villages. So it's really inaccessible. But now because of satellites, because of mobile technology, things are becoming more connected, but still physical connectivity is a big issue. So when we think of mountain perspective, when we think of mountain development, these specificities have to be taken into account.
Exactly. No wonder life in mountains are always, the people who are living in mountainous regions are always living a very secluded life and face the challenges of backwardness and so on. But we've come to a very interesting point in our conversation. We will pick Dr. Sharma's brain here. We have to take a very short break. When we come back, we will continue our conversation. Please don't go away.
Is your smile reducing your confidence? Dental problems giving you sleepless nights? We are here to end your worries. At Dr. Smile, we provide world-class dentistry at your doorsteps. Equipped by advanced diagnostics and expert team of dental surgeons, we have treated over 20,000 patients in just 6 years. Your smile is precious, so trust Dr. Smile.
Welcome back to Gyantalk. I am in conversation with Dr. Eklabya Sharma, and I don't want to go back to introduce him again because that will take me another half an hour to tell everything that he does and everything that he has achieved. But right now, let's not waste any minute and take this opportunity to pick his brain. So you very clearly explain what these specificities are. Now, one of the questions that was asked to you was, especially in a country like India, the developmental plans are basically plain-centric. Nothing much. These specificities are never factored in the planning. How does ICIMOD, pick up these issues at the national level?
I think it's a very, very important point, and it's not for ICIMOD Delhi only.
Right.
For Indian Himalayan region, of course, Delhi.
Right.
But for Tibetan Plateau, it's Beijing.
Right.
For northern part of Pakistan, it's Islamabad.
Mhm.
For Chittagong Hill Tracks, it's Dhaka. So all the time we face this problem in most of our countries.
Right.
Not in Bhutan and Nepal, because they are more mountainous countries.
Right.
So this is a huge issue. Coming back to India, I think we always have been facing the issue how we can bring mountain specific policies, how mountain specificities are built in the national policies. So there has been big challenge, and then of late we have really worked hard with our think tank Niti Aayog. And very much we have been able to penetrate in a way that why and how this the entire Hindu Kush Himalayan region is important in the context of the climate change, in the context of the transboundary disasters, in the context of the economic growth. So how mountain region are important and linked with the Indian Himalayan region. So with that conversation we have now been able to really penetrate, and then there are many decisions we have been able to come with evidences. So there are reports, 5 reports with Niti Aayog which was released recently, and a summary version of that, and the decisions are now taken on board. And one of the big decision is there is a Himalayan Council has been established,
Exactly.
which is just 10 days ago.
Right. So before Niti Aayog came, what were you doing with the Planning Commission? Was there a space for you?
Yeah, the issue at that time was there was not a specific space at all for us in a planning commission. We used to work with Ministry of Forest and Environment at that time. Now it is Forest, Environment and Climate Change. They are still our nodal ministry. But you can just take a few examples when there was a committee on mountain in the planning commission. So ICIMOD was the one who was providing technical support. Dr. Tholia, R.S. Tholia was orchestrating that. So then you had a huge floods in Uttarakhand in 2013. So that killed around 10,000 people, if you recall the pilgrims and like that.
Yeah, we do remember.
So and that the planning commission, Mantik Singh Ahluwalia was vice chair at that time, and he invited, and we actually then talked about the issue, why mountains need a different type of care, and although the information were there in national level, somehow the information doesn't reach to the end users, and all those things we were able to bring. There had been some discussion, but not very systematically. But right now, I think we are in a very
Niti Aayog is good news for the mountain dwellers.
Yeah, it is good because Niti Aayog is think tank, and earlier planning commission was doing more planning. So here when the think tank came, because ICIMOD is a learning and knowledge center, so the work very much matched, and it helped.
And you have, I also saw you have your mountain priorities, 9 of them, and you have also claimed that those 9 priorities are along the same lines of Sustainable Development Goals, and which you did not even refer to while you were drawing up your mountain priorities. Where do you pitch these mountain priorities in terms of working with Niti Aayog?
So let me explain to you what has happened is that I mentioned about this HIMAP, Hindu Kush Monitoring and Assessment Program, and the first assessment is ready, and it is being published by Springer Nature, which is 623 pages, very much reference science work. So that is one part. So now we have evidences for the Hindu Kush Himalayan region, and there are grading results coming. So for that, one is the science part. The other part is the policy part. So that document and the results were presented in Niti Aayog. And then we had a big Hindu Kush Himalayan monitoring which we have done, Hindu Kush Himalayan forum Science Policy Forum, and in that Niti Aayog member was in Kathmandu in
Okay.
ICIMOD.
Okay.
So we are making a big link. So in this context, these 9 priorities which has come is part of call to action in regional level, and that then also goes to the countries, and we make a national plan. So in India, with the Ministry of Forest, Climate Change and Environment and Niti Aayog, we are going to have national level different ministries called together, and then we contribute. So this recommendation which I am mentioning will also go to this Himalayan Council,
Right.
because ICIMOD is one of the members in Himalayan Council.
Okay.
So
okay.
this is the connection.
So you'll continue to have your say on this.
Yes,
So
yes,
follow
very much
up,
in India,
the follow up, you'll have
Yes,
a big
yes,
say,
yes.
which is good news again. When do you think we will begin to see the results of Niti Aayog and your interaction?
I think results have, I would
Started
say, started already. We have made few decisions. Government of India has made few with input from ICIMOD. One is that there is a mission on shifting cultivation. So that's a big issue in Northeast India. So there is a mission, and then the work is already starting.
Right.
So that is a big one. Then another one on tourism. So there is a mission on tourism. So how mountain region or the issues of urbanization like Gyantalk,
Right.
how we are going to address that, and how the mountain tourism is to taken forward. So that mission is also starting. Then one big issue is data sharing, data gap for the Himalayan region. So there is a national resource center under GB Pant Institute already notified and going to be established very much in GB Pant Institute through all Niti Aayog.
Right.
So there is already a action already taking place. So I am very glad that even forming of this council was a big action step forward.
Exactly. So out of the 8 countries that you work with, which country is doing the best as far as mountain development is concerned?
It is very difficult question, I would say. You have to see, if you are looking at science, then suddenly China and India are doing good. Their publications are coming good.
On
before.
papers.
But
in terms of
on
translating
actions,
that
yes,
into, yeah.
So if you look at Nepal's community forestry,
Which is a
all
huge-
middle hills have been totally converted
Exactly.
into green.
Exactly.
So it's a big success. So all other countries should learn from Nepal. So participatory devolution
Yes.
And all actors, stakeholders coming together and making it a success. So like that, each country have their own
Success
strengths,
stories, right.
stories. So it's very difficult to say which country is
Okay.
doing good. I would say that Bhutan is doing very good, exceptionally, because they are totally a mountainous country.
Right.
They are carbon neutral very much. They are the ones who have used clean energy, using total forest and ecosystem preservation, and earning money through hydropower.
By the way, can Sikkim claim to be a carbon neutral state? Are we a carbon neutral state?
We have to look into it in a little scientific way.
So that
So I
assessment
cannot. We have to do an assessment. I cannot say.
Right.
But I would say it is towards carbon neutral.
Right.
Because the forest
And
cover
there's a
has
political will.
yeah, there is a very strong political will. There is there is almost no degradation of
Right,
forest,
right.
no deforestation.
In
But
fact, forest cover has increased over the years.
so in that point of view, carbon neutral, but there are industries.
Right.
There are many vehicles
Right.
which contributes for supplies.
Exactly.
So all those also contribute to this. So we need to really see
Right.
and calculate and see whether it is in that sense.
Okay.
Even Bhutan, I don't know in their calculation whether they are considering all this transport and like that, because
Right. Apart from Switzerland, you have talked about city planning. That is never there
Yeah,
in
yeah.
terms of the mountain regions. Our cities are very poorly planned. But you've been to a lot of these mountainous cities in 8 countries. Which is your model city? Again, I'm keeping you in the chair
I think
of jury.
yeah. Because see, I mean, sometimes if I go to Switzerland, I see very ideal. I see mountain farmers are the best farmers, but they are so much subsidized to keep that farming going. So they get a huge subsidy in cash. So our model and their model, it is not comparable in my opinion.
Right.
So
I'm only asking you about the 8 countries that you visited.
Oh, 8 countries. I would say Bhutan is still the best. Now Thimphu is becoming crowded, but comparatively, if I look at Darjeeling, Mussoorie, Gyantalk, or all these in India, similarly in Pakistan, if I look at Lhasa, or they are clean, Lhasa are clean, but the type of growth, not keeping the many aspects of development together. So I would say Bhutan is more or less one of the ideal state, but things are becoming a little bad in Bhutan, also urbanization. So that's a big issue, and this is a big talk right now in Bhutan, how to
So now that you are the advisor to the government of Sikkim, and this is not a question from the government, but for Gyantok, what are the first few things that we need to do to streamline our city urban planning, urban development here?
I think Gyantok is already too congested. The constructions are, I would say, I mean, unimaginable.
Right.
In such a fragile, in such a state, if there is a big disaster, I always scare. I get scared. If you go towards Ranka and still further up in that hill, I forgot the name of that hill, and look at Gyantok, it looks like the New York is actually hung in the like a calendar, you know.
Right.
So something like that. That is the type of imagination I get. So nothing to say. I mean, there could have been much better planning. We could have spread Gyantok than congesting it in many sense. The worst part, as I feel right now, I think all these vehicles, the number of vehicles, I do not know how it can be controlled.
Right.
So it's also the per capita income of the people, and the overall living standards are increasing. One house will have 4 cars, 3 cars. Every individual has cars.
So we are
so
becoming
are
the
problems.
victim of our own accomplishment.
Yes, yes. So these are some of the things which government can always strive, but it is also, I think, the individuals, and as a citizen of the state, of the country, I think we have certain responsibilities. We should not use vehicles if we have to go just a kilometer, or better to walk. And I'm very glad, at least in Gyantok, you have undisturbed paths to walk.
Right.
That's a very, very good thing. You have less pollution. The only problem is the vehicles which passes next to you then produces carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide, which is not really healthy,
Right.
or even black carbon for the people who walk.
Right.
So these are some of the challenges that we see, but I see there has been some good vision, good thinking, but it is our behavior and our mental thinking that has to change. As a citizen, we need to contribute.
Right.
How we minimize all these modern amenities,
Exactly.
and try to remain simple,
Right.
and contribute, I think.
Right. Government has its own limit, and it finally boils down to how citizens behave, our civic sense, and also our will to contribute to the development of our society. So these are really profound issues that every individual citizen has to think over and ponder and come up with steps that would mitigate these issues. But here we have to take a short break. When we come back, we will continue our conversations. Please don't go away.
नमस्कार दर्शकवृन्द, तपाईहरुलाई अगावै याद भइसकेको कुरा नायुमा टेलिभिजनले प्रत्येक सप्ताह कार्यक्रम झलक विकली प्रसारण गरेको छ। कार्यक्रम झलक विकली यस्तो कार्यक्रम हो जसमा हप्ताभरिका खबरहरू समेटेर हामीले राज्य स्तरका, राष्ट्रिय स्तरका, अन्तर्राष्ट्रिय स्तरका अनि मनोरञ्जन र खेल जगतका खबरहरू देखाउन गरेका छौं। प्रत्येक शनिबार हेर्न नभुल्नुहोला अंग्रेजी समाचार पश्चात कार्यक्रम झलक विकली।
welcome back to Gyantalk. We will now continue our conversation with Dr. Eklabya Sharma. So, Tabai, recently you had gone to Paris, and what did you tell there? What was your message? What was your finding?
In 2000, you're talking about the agreement of
Yes.
15. Yes, that was a year, very interesting year, 2015. In September, the UN Sustainable Development Goals were signed by all head of the states in New York. In 2015. Then in 2015, there was on Sunday framework for disaster risk reduction, global again agreement signed by almost all countries.
Okay.
And the third one on climate agreement in Paris in 2015. I was also there in some of these, and the agreement was all the countries of the world will work and contribute towards keeping the world at 1.5 degree. So that is a big commitment, but that 1.5 degree is too hot for mountains, and it is too hot for the Hindu Kush Himalayan region. We have done this assessment, Hindu Kush Himalayan assessment, I mentioned about that earlier, HIMAP, and in that we have clearly found that when the global average of temperature rise by 2100 is 1.5, it will be above 2.4 up to 2.4 in the Hindu Kush Himalayan region. That is too high, but no way the countries can achieve that 1.5 degree. If we go business as usual as of now, then what will happen is that the Himalayan region by 2100 will have temperature rise of 5 degrees centigrade, which is going to be very, very detrimental. I can tell you, some of the crops which you are finding in surrounding Gyantalk will be actually cultivating in much higher elevation, maybe Hanuman Talk or even further. So the things are going to change very much, and there's a huge
So
impact.
this elevation dependent warming
And
is your
we,
finding?
Yes, this is our elevation.
And were you able to convince them about it?
Yes, we have been talking, papers are published in now Nature and Science Journal. This assessment is going to come in Springer Nature. So this is the science part. So globally it is there. Now we have to work with the countries. And at least we will try to influence these 8 countries so that in the global discourse and discussion, again in climate discussion, they will bring this issue.
So are we to understand that the Himalayan region would be the worst victim of climate change?
Yes, which is not realized. See, all the island countries are shouting for several years, so their issues are being taken.
There was a movie called Day After Tomorrow.
Yes.
All the island cities were drowned and so on.
like that. But in Himalaya region already, you can see our glaciers are melting. If we are in 1.5 degree world, by 2100, our 33% of glacier will vanish. If we are in business as usual as at this moment, what is happening, we are going to lose 69% of our glaciers. So you can imagine all white beautiful mountains will disappear. They become grey and black mountains.
And what happens to the rivers?
Rivers will have lots of problems. Here, I think for the eastern Himalayan region, there is not going to be much issue, because most of our rivers are charged with forest, hydrological cycle, and 90% are like that. So even if the glaciers are melted, it is not going to impact that much. But those herders who are next in Yumthang and all those, they will suffer very much because they will not have. But if you go to Pakistan, if you go to Afghanistan, and even western part of Indian Himalayan region, they will suffer very much because they are highly, 80% of their go to Leh and Ladakh, their irrigation and water dependency is on glaciers. So for those western arid, very dry region countries of the Hindu Kush Himalayan region, they will have a very, very severe water shortage and problems. Whereas the eastern Himalayan region, but I think more importantly, the eastern Himalayan region will get more uncertainties. The rain might come in a very short period of time, a lot of intensity, and we'll have floods and frequent floods every year, and huge size. So these are some of the uncertainties that will prevail because of climate change.
Right. Anyway, climate change is such a complicated issue, and of course, I would not be the right person to even ask us technically sound questions. But now coming back to Sikkim, let's focus our attention on Sikkim in particular. As a hardcore ecologist, what is your assessment about Sikkim sustainable development?
I think Sikkim is in a right path. The first thing is we are mountainous. First, I think we have to see how we can have our environmental security. And Sikkim has done a very good job in having good forest cover, providing good agroforestry systems. So looking into this, there is a very right path. The issue is that if Sikkim is contributing towards this environmental security and the ecosystem services which Sikkim is providing to the downstream, immediate downstream is West Bengal and then Bangladesh, and also I would say the ocean. So, but somehow who is going to incentivize or provide incentives for such an action? So we need to really debate, we need to see, and we need to really work with national government, the Sikkim's contribution.
So in a sense, there's an injustice done to Sikkim.
I think so. For instance, see, recently you have been seeing in CNN and also BBC that whales are dying because of plastics eating. And Sikkim had banned plastic towards the end of last century only. If I remember, it was 97, 98, Sikkim had banned. So much of volume of plastics are not going down to Rangit and Tista. So we are as a state already contributing very much to the downstreams and to the ocean.
Right. I mean, you mentioned about plastic ban in Sikkim. There has been a lot of notifications from the government banning this and banning that. For example, now there is a ban on sale and use of crackers, even in Diwali. Then there's ban on grazing. There's ban on gutka, pan masala. So these are actually unpopular steps on the part of the government, and it could even backfire, and people could even vote you out. So in that sense, this was a very bold step on the part of the government. Why aren't other mountainous the governments in mountainous regions not taking these steps? Are they afraid of people, acting against them?
So all of these, what we are seeing here, is almost done in Bhutan also.
Okay.
Bhutan is very.
But
very
there's no danger of losing power because it's a monarchy.
Now democracy, but they have a democracy system. Of course, still head of the state is the king. I mean, I fully agree with you. Nepal has banned this fire crackers for several years.
Has it been implemented well?
Very, very well. I didn't listen one or two.
All over the country?
At least in Kathmandu, I can say. But it's all over country. But I know Tarai region, I think they are still doing. But Kathmandu very much. But I think the step taken by Sikkim is very bold, and if it is a good step for future generation, I think it has to be digested. And the risk taken by the government, that has to be appreciated. See, after all, we have to close our eyes and see what is good for the state, what is good for the humanity, and what is good for the future generation. If we are really sincere and loyal to our own thinking, the right thinking, I think that should not be an issue.
Right.
Although I will also like to play or have a fire crackers, but how much pollution you see in Delhi, how much pollution is just after Diwali, it creates a huge problem. So I think we have to really see the goods for others also, and keeping broader perspective of development, a sound development. Some of the steps I would say that we have to have our inner
Right.
reflection and really see what is right and what is wrong.
Right, right.
So
Right. I've got so many questions, but we have now very little time. We've come to the almost to the end of the show. But here are a few questions. I'm going to ask you questions put together. One, have you been watching the Sikkim organic farming story? And you are a globe-trotting man. You've been traveling the globe, crisscrossing the globe. Have you seen Sikkim's organic farming, visibility globally?
I think one is that is the first Indian state, so it's a big news. Everybody knows that
Right.
Sikkim is the first organic state. So that's a very good news. Then I think it is being recognized. The leadership is being awarded also for that. So there are news and very much, and many states in India look for Sikkim. Maybe because outside people know about this, and now globally also people know many countries, many places. Those who like about the mountains, they know Sikkim and Sikkim's organic farming, which has been a reality recently. So I think this is a very good step. I have been interacting with some of the very senior bureaucrats in international forum from India. So they really project Sikkim as a model, and they talk very high of Sikkim in international forums.
Right.
So there are, so they really think that Sikkim is, so nationally it is very much recognized, and organic farming has a long way to go. There are many aspects of organic farming which we are discussing.
Right.
So in this, I would say there are new opportunities in farming.
Right.
So from traditional, what are the new opportunities which can be harnessed? I think we have to start thinking in that direction.
So in a sense, the ball is in the court of the people. They have to exploit this.
Yes, there are instruments. I think there is a policy,
Right.
and there are possibilities. I think what is that the people have to come and use this opportunity.
Right.
But in this, there are many bottlenecks like finances and like that, which should not come from government. It should be something which has to come from financial institutions, because for an opportunity for something to really take, you need finances. So all these have to be looked, and we have to really support the direction in which this is moving. But I would simply say that I think organic mission, farming mission of Sikkim is really something which has a lot of potential, and which has given a very good image of Sikkim. And with this image, I think we have to really sell Sikkim with the central government, sell Sikkim with the business, sell Sikkim with the global community.
In your, tell us one example of you hearing about Sikkim in a foreign land. I'm not talking about Nepal. I'm not talking about even Pakistan, Afghanistan. I'm talking about European countries. Where has there been a moment when you were in one of the European countries and heard about Sikkim organic farming?
Just recently I was in Rome,
Right.
and I was in a dinner in International Fund for Agriculture Development, that is IFAD. So there was a social event in the evening with some people, very senior people from there, and they said, oh, Sikkim's chief minister here is in Rome.
Okay. So you were there at the same time?
I was there at the same time, but I didn't know that such an event and CM is going to be there.
Okay.
So I missed, I couldn't go and meet him, but I was exactly on those days in another UN organization having this meeting. And from there, the day I heard about it on 15th, on 16th I went to Bolzano, another
That time you were not appointed as the advisor to the government of Sikkim?
No, I was not appointed. I didn't know about Chief Minister's recognition which was taking place in Rome.
So here is a proof that Sikkim organic farming story is globally talked about.
I think so. I think now it's a lot of visibility.
Right.
I would say there is
Right.
it's visibly seen in many places. In India, it's very well known, and outside also you will know. And I think there are many institutions who are looking forward to learn from Sikkim.
and you as the advisor will have a big role to play here, but which is subject for another day. But here I have some personal question for you. Tell us about your children. You being such a professional man, have you been a good father?
Yes, sometimes we have to see how, as a family, we also go with the type of career development. My wife is also PhD.
Right.
She worked in Sikkim on Alnus cardamom,
Right.
Albizia, mandarin systems, again agroforestry systems. But she decided after some time to really take care of home, because I was traveling most of the
Big
time.
sacrifice on our part.
Yeah, but on the other hand, I feel very proud. My son finally went to McGill University in Canada. It's one of the top most universities, and he graduated in engineering from there. And then now he's currently working in Canada, but he has plans to come back after a few years.
So he's a Canadian citizen now.
Maybe, I don't. Right now he's Indian citizen.
Okay.
He might. I don't know what he will do.
And,
the second one is daughter. She is studying. She's young, 14 years. She studies in the British school, which is in British system, but very creative. So I feel that we have been able to raise our children with values.
Anyway,
with
we have to really congratulate you for being such a professional, top-notch professional, and at the same time becoming such a wonderful father. And of course, your wife's sacrifice, I think it was all worth it, looking at how your children are rising, high in their life, which is a big lesson for all of us. Becoming a top-notch professional is one thing, but to be able to raise your children in the way you've done is quite another. I've always wanted to ask you another question. You've achieved so much in your life. How do you remain grounded? The sense of pride, the sense of arrogance, how do you battle?
I think we are a human being. We should not forget we are a human being. You will not believe. I have got very top Japanese car with all diplomatic CD, country diplomat, all those. I travel business class in airplanes. You will not believe, when I come to Siliguri, I sometimes sit in tuk-tuk and walk around. I have to understand what is our real foundation is. So we should be connected with grassroots. I think that is there, and I think in the world, ultimately, let's be humble and try to achieve.
To me, that's a mark of greatness, because Mahatma Gandhi used to clean his own toilet, that we've been told. And I also heard that you never call your subordinates to your office, you go to them.
Yeah, that is also, I've got a personal interest, because if you walk a little bit then and go to others' room, that helps my physical, so I have an interest in that. And always.
But that's a good example.
And I think as a leader, if you see, if I call my people, it is not a teamwork. So if I go to people, I think they really like, because they also feel that I would normally in such a senior position, people would not. I have to have meetings if it is a meeting in my room or in a meeting room, but if I have to do other work, and I just run around, and I don't look at the position or something. I just try to do like that. It is just my style.
Right. You are not only a very well accomplished scientist, you're also a very, very ideal human being, and we've got to learn a lot. Not only from your scientific proficiency, but also from your humanity. And thank you so much for coming to our show, sir, and to our small studio, very humble studio, and for having spent this almost an hour with us. We would cherish this moment, and we would wish you all the best in your journey, and look forward to seeing you back in Sikkim.
Thank you very much. I'm so happy that I've been able to come back, and at least now I'm through your Gyantalk able to at least say and share some of my thoughts and some of my experience. I feel glad, I feel privileged. Thank you very much.
Yes, it's our honor, sir. Thank you so much for coming, and it's time for us to say goodbye to Dr. Sharma and goodbye to our audience. But before we sign off, here is this lesson from Mr. Sharma's life, that no matter how high you rise, your feet should be firmly grounded. Your feet should be firmly planted on the ground that you have stood. And I think that is the biggest life lesson that we can really learn from his life. And we have to say goodbye to him, but when we come back next week, we'll have another success story or another life story that we will celebrate and learn from. Till then, take care and bye-bye.